Hello and welcome to the Three Peaks Podcast.
Where we take a break from the hike of life
and appreciate the view.
Today, we have a very special guest, Damian Dayton. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. I don't know that I'm that special, but I'm glad I could be on today.
Yeah. So we just wanted to give you a brief moment to tell us more about yourself for our audience.
So I'm the Chief Creative Officer at Creatively. We make digital ads that help companies, especially online companies, grow real fast. And our ads are a little bit unique. Most commercials are like 30 seconds long, and ours can be 3 to 5 minutes long, and they grow on social media. So we've done, and we own a couple of the companies that we've helped grow, like PillowCube and StairSlide. Then we've also worked for a lot of companies locally here in Utah and helped them grow, like Owlet and Kizik and Thread Wallets are some of the brands that we work with.
Oh, wow.
Very
Awesome.
cool. Awesome. So you mentioned that your company does ads, and instead of doing the 30-second, they tend to do more into the minutes. And I wanted to ask you, since now and then, people's attention span has kind of shrinked a lot. And so how do you captivate a consumer to stay for that 3-minute ad?
That's a great question, Ezra. Because there's a lot of pressures to make commercials shorter and shorter. But if you've noticed, movies since the pandemic, movies have actually gone longer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We used to be about 90 minutes, and now most movies are over 2 hours long.
Yeah.
So what we found is that people's attention spans are short if they're bored.
Right.
But if they're interested, they're willing to watch as long as they're interested. And so that's our challenge as an agency, is we try to make interesting content that keeps people engaged and keeps them watching. And we feel like we have to earn our views. So one of the reasons we do that is everybody who buys a Super Bowl ad, say, they pay the same amount of money for a Super Bowl ad, which is millions of dollars. But on social media, if you're keeping people on the platform, you actually pay less for your ad. And in fact, so sometimes we'll cut down our 5-minute ad to a 30-second and a 15-second. It's usually more expensive for us to play a 15-second ad than a 5-minute ad, because the inventory we're creating, we're keeping people on the platform. So our challenge is to keep people interested. We do it mostly through humor, but we also think we do it a lot through trying to tell interesting stories. We have a lot going on, whether that's demons under the bed or unicorns or monkeys slapping stockbrokers. Those are all the sort of things that we figure out, okay, and we'll watch on a second-by-second basis in a video, where are we losing viewers, and come back and try to make that more interesting and try to keep people watching.
Yeah.
So I would say that attention spans aren't shorter, but people definitely are impatient, and we really have to work harder to earn their views.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so I actually wanted to talk about a quick quote. It's by Albert Einstein, and he said that creativity is seeing what others see and thinking what no one else ever thought. And in your job position, you really have to mix a bunch of ideas to make some advertisement that speaks to not only consumers, but also draw them in to sell them a product that would help them solve some of their needs. So in the work you do, what are some of the best tactics you've developed to really get consumers hooked on to products?
Boy, there's a lot in that question. So there's a lot we do, but I think it does relate to how we understand creativity. So I'm going to answer your quote with one of my favorite philosophers, Dolly Parton. And she said, the secret to life is knowing who you are and doing it on purpose. And I think that's really important when you're talking with when you're talking about advertising. We're trying to make sure we really understand what we're selling. And so going back to your quote about Einstein and thinking about what nobody has ever thought, that's true to some extent, but we don't create from nothing. We pull from all of our life experiences. We pull from everything we do. So when we meet with a client, we don't just pitch them like, this is your idea, we're the creative ones, you're not. We have a creative system that we like to help take them through, and they bring members of their team, their engineers and salespeople, and we do some brainstorming exercises with them and help them come up with new ideas. And I think true creativity is evolving old ideas with new ideas and seeing them come together. So as soon as we come up with a formula for something that's really going to work, the internet changes. And the one thing that's true is the newest, most unexpected things tend to work the best on the internet. So we do, I don't say that there's one thing that really works well, but what we try to do is we try to connect our hook in the first 3 seconds. You're going to see something interesting, engaging that asks a question, but it should also relate to the product that we're selling in a way that deals with the deep-seated itch that you have that makes you want to use that product. So for Pillow Cube, it is specifically a pillow designed for side sleepers. So we try to find ways to notice how you sleep on your side and you're not supported, or you're not feeling supported in your life. For Stair Slide, it might be that your kids are bored. Our latest commercial for Stair Slide talks about, do you want to win Christmas? So it's not just a slide. We're saying like the pain that the parents are feeling is, I need to come up with a great Christmas gift. So this is how you're going to win Christmas, is buying this. So we're thinking about a funny gag, but simultaneously we're trying to line up humor with what we call the itch and the scratch. We want the product to be the scratch that is the only thing that will work for the particular itch that they know that you feel in your life, you know?
Yeah.
So with Thread wallets, it might be you're just carrying around too much stuff. So we've got a minimal wallet that looks cooler. So too much stuff is ruining your life in some way. It's making it worse. And we're just trying to make your life a little bit better by carrying it in a more attractive way. You're not burdened by so much stuff, and you can go have the adventures you want to have in your life. You know?
Yeah.
And so I had a question for you. So who are some of your mentors that have helped you become who you are now? Because I think having a lot of creativity in your life has been from, like, you know, like you said, learning experiences. So what people have helped you become so creative?
Boy, I you know, honestly, I couldn't say that I have one mentor or mentors that have jumped out at me, but I have a lot of people that have given me opportunities and that have given me space to create, or people that recognize that I was creative and they were able to do something that I wasn't. So my current business partner now, Jay Davis, he's a great business leader, and he gives us a lot of freedom to do what we're great at. He always says, well, our job is to cultivate people's genius. So you're going to find in life that you're good at a lot of things, bad at a lot of things, but really only great at a couple things. And a big part of life is figuring out what are those things that you're great at, and how can you, that's where you're going to see the most improvement in your life. If you focus on those things that you're great at and get better at those things, and it tends to lift everything up. So that's something I learned from Jay. One of the first people to take a chance on me wasn't an adult mentor. It was a friend from high school, Travis Babcock. He owned a company called Kineto Pictures. Now he works at Lensworks. A great director and producer. I was just playing around with film at the time. It's like, I'm going to start a company only if you come and be my partner. And he was really one of the first people to really believe in me and give me a chance at doing a lot of things. I have to say my brothers are a huge inspiration. When I was a kid, everybody was out playing football and I was a scrawny kid. We sat around and draw monsters and ninjas. And now one's an illustrator, one works in video games, one writes books. And we could, while everybody's out playing football, I always had my team, much like you guys as siblings, that we could sit and do the things that were interesting to us. Yeah. And those things that are interesting to us, turns out there's a world full of people that are interested in those things. And so I still get to write stories about ninjas and monsters. It's been about, you know, being able to lean in at what I'm naturally good at. And one of those things is telling corny jokes. So I get to tell dad jokes for a living.
Yeah. Well, actually, speaking of dad jokes, I was wondering if we could like swap over some dad jokes. I actually have one right here. Is it okay if I read it to you?
Yeah, I'd love to. I can't promise I won't steal them, because the best dad joke should be stolen.
All right. So, knock, knock.
Who's there?
No bell.
No bell who?
No bell. So I just knocked.
That's a nice one. Yeah.
You got one?
Yeah, I made this one up for my son. I'm just staying with the kung fu or the knock knock theme. Knock knock.
Yeah. Who's there?
Kung fu.
Kung fu who?
Kung Fu Panda. Now he liked Kung Fu Panda, so that was made just for him.
Nice.
But trying to think of another good dad joke. Gosh, you put me on the spot. I thought I was going to be talking about business.
Yeah.
Corny jokes. So everybody in my family knows that if you ask somebody what they're eating, you have to ask, what are you eating under there? Because the answer always is then
Underwear. Yeah.
There you go.
I lost your image for some reason, but I hope you
Yeah, the camera's having some trouble. We're fixing it right now.
Okay.
I wanted to just quickly ask you about the difference between in real life advertisement and digital advertisement. So for you, what do you think makes an audience look more for a product? Something that they see at the mall or something that they see on the computer?
That's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of different types of advertising and in between. You know,
Right.
billboards. I used to do critiques of billboards on LinkedIn and they got a lot of views, but I'm not really in the billboard industry. I always think a billboard has to communicate most within one image and you have at maximum 7 words to convey what you want.
Right.
I think sometimes the best billboard is a hot and ready pizza and it just says hot and ready, $5.99. That tells me everything I want. In-person ads work for things that you already want and you're on the hunt for. I think on television ads, they take for granted that you're not going to skip them. So they've got only 30 seconds, but they can have a slow build and then pay off at the end. Online advertising, as long as you're keeping them interested, you can advertise them now to them. Now, I can tell you just an interesting story, but if it doesn't sell any product, that doesn't work. So we kind of focus on new products that are new to the marketplace and people may not understand. So you need a longer story to tell. You don't need a long story to tell the story of why people want to drink Coca-Cola. While I think I could do a great commercial for Coca-Cola, I don't think a long form commercial is as important for them as it is for something that needs to be explained, like the pillow cube. When people see it, like, isn't that just a chuck and foam?
Right.
Explain, no, you need more support if you sleep on your side, and most people don't offer that, and we're going to offer more support, and our material is different, and so we love to work with new products that are entering the market that need to be explained for that reason. TV generally works better for products that are already out there. And so I always say you don't want to be on the TV unless everybody in America is within 5 miles of buying that product.
Right.
And billboards, I think, work best if you're reminding people of the brand. But, if you're selling something like Nike, I want to sell a brand, but they might have hundreds of shoes available. So I'm just going to focus on the brand, and that will drive you when you're in the store. You're going to explore the right type of shoe because you believe that they have the right philosophy athletics and running and whatever it is that you believe in. So you're sure you'll find a shoe for you when you get there.
Right.
But still, once you get into the store, you're going to find things about the weight and the materials and and so everybody has the details about the product.
Right.
Is where do you put them? Do you put them in your first ad or do you put them when you get in the store? And that for me kind of depends on how new, how revolutionary or disruptive your product is.
Right. And then with starting with kind of smaller businesses and it's like kind of their first ad, how do you want to place the product and have it seen as?
Well, that depends a lot on the type of product. So we worked with a company called Sweater that offers a financial product.
Right.
We often are kind of known for using humor in our commercials, but we knew that people needed to take it seriously because investors were investing $10,000 or more.
Yeah.
And so we needed to have a slightly more serious tone, a production value that looked a little bit different, a little bit more serious, but we still used humor to engage people.
Yeah.
I think when you're launching a company, though, if it is not something critical that needs a lot of trust, like a vehicle or a financial instrument, or if it's a product, I like to be as outlandish as possible. I like to get people's attention and make sure they're listening. Make sure I've got their attention before I sell to them. The two worst things that can happen in advertising is they forget about you, or they remember the ad and they don't remember the product.
Yeah.
And I find this space in between those two. After the Super Bowl, I always ask my friends what their favorite commercial is, and half the time they can't remember what the product was for.
Yeah.
And they remember, oh, there was this really funny commercial, and they're like, yeah, what were they selling? What was the name of the company? And it's amazing how often they can't remember. So
Yeah. And so with advertisement, like what made you want to go into that field?
Largely based on how much fun it is. I was actually going to go to medical school. I had applied to medical school. I was doing research at the Huntsman Cancer Institute. I wasn't as good at research as I had worked at the hospital, and I liked that a lot. But I worked in a lot of films while I was at school, while I was doing my undergraduate work.
Right.
That I felt guilty doing it because it was so much fun. I'm like, well, this is doing this.
Yeah.
Right.
And I took some time off when I decided not to go to medical school. And I'm like, I'm just going to try to write. And some opportunities came up in filmmaking. And then from there, I've just had a little bit of a journey. And I for a long time, I thought I wanted to make serious films. But right now, twice a month, I get to make great short films that are fun, create new worlds, and tell great stories. And so I really like that. And I balance that with trying to focus on products I believe in and making sure that I'm telling the truth about the products. I'm right now I'm wearing half of my clients' products that I like to wear, like to use. So
Yeah.
And you were mentioning when we asked you the mentor question that you and your brothers, they're in video games, they're making books. So do they ever give you any ideas for maybe a product that you're working with and stuff like that?
yeah, but we're kind of beyond that, where they're all deep in their careers. Like sometimes we'll talk about what a fun video game might be, or I'll talk about. I'm constantly brainstorming because we start companies here, and so we have product ideas. But mostly when I get together with them, we just talk in general about books and ideas, and sometimes that will spur ideas and things. And I think ultimately starting a business is a very creative endeavor. So yeah, we talk about all sorts of things, not so much related to work, but it's that exploration of ideas that makes you laugh, that you're having fun, that really engages those parts of your brain, that turns on new thoughts.
Yeah.
And you've been talking a lot about the Super Bowl, and that's like one of the biggest staples of putting out a commercial out there. Have you ever thought about the opportunity of putting together a Super Bowl commercial?
I have, and I'm not too interested in it. I think the biggest ad I did ran during the Daytona 500, which is not the Super Bowl, but I really like the model that I work in now because a lot of brands aspire to have a Super Bowl ad.
Right.
And I feel like that's a lot about their ego at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like the money that you're going to spend to be on the Super Bowl, depending on the brand and product, is probably not worth it. Now, there's some good things that you could accomplish with that ad, but you might get 32 million viewers on a Super Bowl. Our first Pillow Cube ad has had over 200 million views on it.
Oh wow.
Right. Yeah. The pillow.
So I feel like by working in what I am, I'm creating Super Bowl moments.
Yep.
That I can see those results and iterate on and make them better, and so I like that. The internet has opened that up, and that can be one penny, one view at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, with the giant popularity of companies putting advertising on social media, do you think that social media has become a very big resource to just the community who puts out advertisements?
Oh, definitely. So the advertising community became very dependent, especially on Facebook, because their metrics and their algorithm became very, very good at identifying who might buy a product.
Right.
So we could watch once, not individually, the algorithm could watch once somebody bought a stair side, let's say, and then it's going to say we can go find 1 million people that look the most like this person, that have the same likes, interests, and behaviors. And then Apple came along when they did their iOS 14 update, and they blocked a lot of those cookies that shared that information. And a lot of e-commerce companies felt a big hit at that point, like enough that Facebook just had to lay off about 100,000 employees, largely over their Meta program. And it's made a lot of people think, oh, I don't know if e-commerce is that viable way. But there's been thousands of companies appear during the social media age because it made advertising accessible. If you're a local company, you might be able to advertise for Joe's Plumber to your local TV station. But if I want to reach a national audience, it's very expensive. But through most social media platforms, I can start with $20 a day and say, oh, if I can put $20 on this ad and I can get $100 in business, good. Now tomorrow I can put $100 in ads into it and I can grow my company that way. And that's what we call ROAS, return on ad spend. And the internet and social media has made that much easier to track what that return on ad spend is.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to our final question. And on the podcast, it's usually known
the hardest one
as the big question.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Hit me.
All right. Our big question to you is, what is your advice to the younger generations?
I'm going to go back to Dolly Parton, what she said earlier. Figure out who you are and do it on purpose. A lot of people are going to say, a lot of people are pushing people towards an entrepreneurial path, but that path isn't for everybody. I think you can learn a lot by doing a business. I would say I really value an education. I value school, but I always think that there is your degree and then there's your education, and you should pursue both of them. So no matter what you're going to school for, that's really important. You can learn a lot of really important things, but always be learning about other things. And I think your education should never end. So people that are asking me about film, I always tell them, to go to your film classes, but you should be making films every weekend. In your phone, you have better filmmaking materials than I had when I was getting my degree in filmmaking. You can shoot and edit better. So whatever it is, you should be doing a fair amount of what you'd like to do. So if you want to be starting a business, you can learn so much from running a lemonade stand. If you want to be riding horses, get a job at a stable mucking out horses and learning about horses. And whatever it is, if you follow that passion, you will have a superpower that nobody else does. I had a friend that encouraged everybody to go into accounting because it was such a stable field. Turns out I'm good at accounting, but it makes me really unhappy. And no matter how good I am at math, there's somebody that is stoked, that loves making the numbers line up and so it's not just become a hockey player because you love hockey. You have to kind of find a blend of what you like and what you're good at, and find something hopefully that makes the world a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, we just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to meet with us. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Sure. Thank you so much for your time, guys. You guys have a great one.
You too.
That's what we have for you guys on the Three Peaks podcast. We'll see you guys on the trail next time.